Alright, I'd like to take a moment just to walk through the steps that you need to follow to be able to complete the Build a Blazor to-do list app tutorial. Now, during this tutorial, the idea is that you're going to create a to-do list app in Blazor. You're going to modify some Razor components, you're going to add some event handling, you're going to bind some data, and you're going to use routing inside the Blazor app. Now, before we begin, like all the other tutorials that we've been going through for Blazor, you need to make sure that you have the .NET 3.1 SDK installed. Now I'm going to use the command line as is described in this tutorial. I'm also going to create a second video which walks through the same process but uses Visual Studio. So there's two different ways you can complete the same tutorial. Right now this is the command line explanation. So to begin, I have a folder named tutorials. This is where I'm going to put my new projects. I have the browser and I have a command line window. If you need to open a command prompt, then you can go to start, type command, you'll be able to open one. If you're on a Mac, then open up the terminal and you'll be able to accomplish the same tasks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this command right here and I'm going to paste it into the command prompt and run it. What this is going to do, this is going to create a new project that is called to-do list, and it's going to be based off the Blazor server project type. Now in the instructions it wants us to use cd to-do list, so we're just going to switch directory into to-do list, and notice that the new folder we just created is visible here. So if we do this, now we're operating inside our to-do list folder. So if we open this up, we can see all of the different files that were created through this process. Again, that first command, just as it was with the first tutorial that we did, it is simply to create the initial project, and it's the same process that is done when you go through the wizard inside Visual Studio 2019. Now, it's important that we're inside the to-do list folder right now, because what we're going to do now is add a new Razor component that's called to-do. So we're going to copy and paste and run that. And now what happened is it's created some extra Razor components inside the project. So if we go here and we look at pages, we now have to do. Now if we take a look at that Razor file that was created, the to-do page, if we open up pages and I'll right click to do, and for simplicity I'm going to open with Notepad. We could open this with Visual Studio, but I think for the purpose of the tutorial, I think opening it in Notepad is most appropriate. Keeps it very simple. Now, our page has some very basic mockup. Now it's missing the page component, so we need to add that. It has a title or a heading 3. That says to do. Now this page component is designed to tell the routing component of Blazor which URL is going to be used to access this page. So you would go to your website address and you go /todo, and that's going to take us to this page. Now, another piece that we have to do is we have to add a new item to our menu. So we don't do that inside here. We do that inside our other file, and that's in our shared folder. So we go to shared, and then we go to navmenu.razor. And again, I'm going to use Notepad. Now, if you're not as familiar with HTML, just look for the patterns in what's going on here. So we need to add the navlink element, and we need to be able to add it for our new page. So notice what it wants us to add is right here. So where is it going to go? To do. And what's it going to say? Well, it's going to say to do. Notice the lowercase and the uppercase. One the user's going to see on the screen, the other one is just telling the browser where to go. But this entire component is what we need. Now if we look here, this starts with li and ends with li. Well, if we look, we have a div, and we have ul, then we have li, li, li. Now what this is a list of items, and then this is the first item, second item, and the third item. So what I'll do is I'll press enter and I'll paste what we have here. And if we'd like, we can space these out so that they match the existing ones. It's not as important that we do this, but you can definitely do that. So what essentially we've done is just add another entry to this list. So we save this file, we close it, and now we can use the .NET run command to execute our program. And again, make sure that we're inside the to-do list folder so that .NET run knows it has to run this program. So right here, it's giving us an option of 2 different website addresses we can go to. Either one will work. I'm going to copy this. And we're going to open a new web browser. And we can visit the page. And this is the same tutorial that we've been working with for a couple different lessons. Here we have our counter, we have our home, our fetch data, and now we have to do. And there's not much in to do, but we did just make a blank page, so that kind of makes sense. So now what we want to do is we want to add some code so that we can have our to-do class exist so we know what it is that we're going to bind to the visual elements of the page. So what we want to do is we want to add a file and call it todoitem.cs. Now where are we going to do that? We're going to do that in the root folder of the directory. So we're going to add that right here. So I'm just going to create a new text document, and I'm just going to call it todoitem.cs. And I'm getting a warning that says, oh, are you sure you want to change the extension of the file name? Yeah, I know what I'm doing, so I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to open it with Notepad. Now we need to add our class. So our class is just going to define what a to-do item is and what properties it contains. So in this case, we have a title and a bool that decides, is it done? Now if we close this, we can go back to our pages and we can go back and edit our to-do page. And what we have here is we have a new section which is going to define what it's going to show on the page. So we'll just add that here. So what it's saying is we have an unordered list, and for each of the entries in to-dos, so for each to-do inside to-dos, I'd like to have a list item with the text of title. And then in our code, we need to make sure that we have a private list of our to-do item. So now we have a place for our to-dos to exist. And if we continue down, we need to add an extra piece here, which is an input box to let us type something. So we'll copy this, and below the list of items in our to-do list, we'll just paste that here. So we have a spot to type, and we have a button to press. So now if we save this and we close it, now I'd like to try running it again. So what I need to do is stop the program. So Control-C, and then I want to .NET run again. So that's stopping our program and starting it again. And notice that when I do that, our web browser can no longer find the connection to the server because we stopped it. So now we have to reload the page. So now on our to-do page, we have to do, something to do, but it doesn't do anything. Well, we're not quite done yet. We didn't tell the button to do anything. So we'll go back and edit our to-do file. So right now we have a title at the top, we have an unordered list, and we have a list item for each of the to-dos in the to-do list. We have a box to type some text in, we have a button, and we have a list. But our button doesn't do anything. So we need to modify the button slightly. So right here, if you see the difference, we need to add this piece right here. On click, add to do. And then what we need to do is add our method, which is add to do. Now, whenever we press this button, this code is going to execute. Now what we need to do is we need to add some way to get the information out of the text box the person types into. So what we need to do is create a new string, and in this case we'll call it new to do. And we'll put it right here. It'll be a private string. And what we need to do is bind the text box or the input field to that string. So right up here, right at the end, we'll just add bind new to do. So now this input is now bound to this string right here. So now we have access to the text. We have a button that's going to fire a method, but now we have to have some logic to retrieve the text and add it to our list. So what we need right here is this code. So now our method add to do, if the string is null or white space. So basically right here, we want to make sure that our new to do string is not a lack of value or just white space. So it's not blank. Then what we want to do is add whatever the contents of that text box is, which we're retrieving through this variable, which is bound to this text box. We want to add it as a new to-do item to our list. And then what we want to do is set our string back to empty. So you can continue and you can add a second item. So we'll save this, we'll close, and then we'll stop our program and we'll .NET run. Go back here and notice that now the connection is broken and now we have to reload. So now we can type item 1 and that adds to our list. Item 2. And that adds it to our list. So now our code seems to be operating. Now the title for each to-do item can be made editable, and then we can add a little checkbox. So what we can do is right click, open in Notepad, and what we can do is we can say we have an input checkbox. We could add that. So right up here where we're creating our list, well, we can put a little extra here, space things out a little bit, and instead of just having the title, we can put it inside a text box that'll be editable. And then what we can do is we can say change our title so that it reflects how many items we have in our list. So we can save this, and we can return here, and we can press Control-C to cancel. We can .NET run. We can go back to our to-do list, just wait a moment, and we can reload the page. Let's see, item 1, item 2, and so on. And now we have checkboxes. We have the ability to change the names of things. and we have a number that represents how many items there are that need to be completed. Now, these items don't save in any way, but we've created the basis of what we need to be able to scaffold forward to create data bindings for more complex data sets. Now the next steps after this are to figure out how do we make data persist? How do we modify more complex Blazor components? How do we add multiple pages and create more persistence and data components and real-time interaction and things like that? That's where we would move to next.